And welcome to another spectacular episode of the Daily Space Weather. And we've got some imagery to indeed knock your socks off. You might see a huge prominence happening up there in the northwestern limb. We also have a very high likelihood of large solar flares, including the possibility of X-class flares. We'll cover that and lots more on today's Daily Space Weather video. Thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists, and feast your eyes on this. What you're going to see here is a huge prominence that did indeed lead to a huge coronal mass ejection when large quantities of material exit the solar corona, blasting out into the greater solar system, sometimes even headed toward Earth, and causing things like geomagnetic storms. So let's take a brief moment here just to take a look at all the filaments, as there is a filament fest going on. We've got an inordinate number of filaments, which are the type of prominence we just showed you, but when they're more stable. So you can see filaments here, you can see filaments here. A lot of these dark features, there's a huge one right down here. A lot of these dark features are plasma filaments. Again, they have a tendency to go blasting off into space, so we cover them daily on the channel. So let's go around the horn here for a brief moment. There is the northeastern limb. These sunspots also have complex magnetic fields. They are capable of producing large flares as well. However, the most likely places to see a large solar flare would, of course, be the northwestern limb. Those series of setting sunspot groups are still quite magnetically complex, and they are still active enough to produce major flaring events, radio blackouts, etc. Here is that same close-up. This is 304 plus 195 angstroms from the GOES R. Here is the southwestern limb. Again, we've got huge plasma filaments that we're going to show you detailed imagery of from Udaipur, India, actually. And there is the southeastern limb. No new sunspots. We've seen a slight dip in solar activity since yesterday. And let's take a look at some more data. Here are yesterday plus today's SDO images of the solar photosphere. That is the SDO intensity gram. Now, there have been some active regions showing up down here in the southwest. I'm not really seeing them too obviously here. I don't think they're getting names yet. I don't see any sunspots there, in fact. A little bit of mild growth up in this northerly group. Besides that, most of those sunspots fairly stable. Here's a colorized magnetogram for that same period. That is yesterday plus today, which would be May 12th and May 13th to date. Continuing on, let's take a look at what's going on planet Earth. We report erupting volcanoes on the daily. Subanose-jima starts out our list. It's producing a 6,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Krakatau's next. Steam and smoke emissions. No indication on the volcanic ash cloud altitude from Krakatau. Dakono, flight level 070. As it explodes, it's producing a 7,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Popocatépetl exploding in central Mexico, flight level 230. It's a 23,000-foot ash plume. Fuego, not sure if it's erupting in Guatemala or not. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Volcanic ash not detected. In Colombia, Nevado de Ruiz is exploding in an explosive fashion, producing a 21,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. It's a flight level 210. Flight level 140 over Ecuador from Revenador as it explodes. 14,000-foot ash plume, 22,000-foot ash plume over Cotopaxi as it explodes, and continuous ash emissions from Sabancaya in Peru as well occurring. Next, global seismicity. There is the past 90 days. And Some interesting things happening here in the Aleutian Islands. No idea what it is, and let us know in the comments if you know what it is. Other event. Yeah, other event. So this one was the first one occurring south of the Alaskan Peninsula. It was a 2.8 magnitude other event at 78.6 kilometers depth, which makes me think it's not man-made, but what that makes me wonder is, well, what is it? It shows up as a diamond on the USGS map, and so that was at 2:17 Universal Time this morning. Also at 2:27, just 10 minutes later, another other event. This one was a 3.9 magnitude at just 5 kilometers depth. And that one is actually on the Alaska Peninsula. There is a location of that. So that's pretty weird. Other event. I clicked most of the links on these pages, and I have no idea what that means. If you know, let us know, and the rest of the viewers, let them know in the comments. We'll cite quakes over a 5 magnitude, of which there haven't been many, if any. Just 1 or 2, I believe. Here is one at Guam. So there was a 5.1 at Guam. That was yesterday afternoon at 15:01 Universal Time. Tonga had a 5.2 south of Tonga. That was at 21:46 yesterday evening Universal Time. And there was a 5.3 at Japan this morning at 10:28 Universal Time. And let's get back to space. But first, check out the channel's merch. You'll find a link below the video to the Redbubble shop. Today's featured product is the Galactic Federation Special Forces. Because if you're sick of what's going on in your household, neighborhood, town, county, state, regional location, country, continent, hemisphere, planet, solar system, interstellar region, perhaps you ought to join the Galactic Federation Special Forces. As if I could wave my magic wand, I'd set everybody free. If that sounds too reckless for you, well, I'm terribly sorry about that. By the way, the symbolism on the product represents the Milky Way galaxy, signals security and integrity, and instantaneous galactic scale reach. Universum Liberate, the motto, or you could say the moniker, or even the mission of the Galactic Federation Special Forces. And again, let's get back to space. How about some more imagery of the closest star? Here's 131 plus 171 angstroms. Pretty sweet. And I'll bet you want to see that northwestern limb again. Quick reminder that there is certainly the capability of large flares from these groups as well. And it has to do with their magnetic field complexity. So here is that northwestern limb. Some solar plasma flying off like a supersonic missile. Let's blast through some more solar stats here. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now at 149 solar flux units. That radio signal comes out of the upper chromosphere and lower corona, about where my pointer is. And it represents the most proportional data set to sunspot number. You can see this recent peak here. Sunspot number actually making it all the way up to 153, it looks like, while the radio flux made it up to 173. Peaks in the radio flux are associated with peaks in the sunspot number, which means they are directly proportional variables. Let's take a look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard to see NOAA's forecast. So that's what's going on with NOAA's forecast, expecting geomagnetic calm conditions, and I would tend to agree. There is not a lot of activity on Earth's way at the moment. So here's Earth's magnetic moment from space, and it is geomagnetically calm conditions here, and for the foreseeable future, that's expected to continue. This depicts magnetohydrodynamic pressure. Again, it's for the past 4 hours. The Geospace Magnetosphere movie is a model by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. If you want to read about that, click details. There's a link to the Space Weather Modeling Framework. You can download the software and analyze it yourself. Next, ground magnetic perturbations. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground for the past 4 hours scaled in, well, the units depicted here are delta B in nanotesla, meaning changes to Earth's B field in magnetic flux density at the ground level. Again, quite geomagnetically calm here. We're seeing a coronal hole high-speed stream subside. We'll get to that in about 2 panes. Planetary K Index currently at 2.33. Again, it's geomagnetically calm conditions. And the real-time solar wind showing us 447 kilometers per second at Lagrange point 1, where the ACE and Discover are measuring the real-time solar wind. 447 kilometers per second and just under 5 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of that is fairly unremarkable. GOES magnetometer saw something weird happen yesterday. There were 40 minutes of missing data right after the GOES 16 saw a very high spike. So I don't think I've ever seen that before, actually, besides at an ArcJet moment. But you've got this missing data right here where it goes from 1400 to 1440. So no data there for the GOES 16 or GOES 18. But there was indeed a very large spike in the magnetic field there on the GOES 16, making it all the way up to 189 nanotesla there. So that's interesting. After that, magnetic fields experienced a much more homogeneous set. Here's a 7-day graph just to put it in a little better context for you. That was the largest magnetic spike, the highest magnetic reading from either of the GOES satellites for the past week. There's the 3-day chart, which is what we usually show on the channel. And let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet, as there is a sector boundary crossing about to show up later today. So by the time tomorrow's daily space weather video comes out, you will be in a South Pole-oriented current sheet. The solar plasma is oriented to a pole, a magnetic pole, and Earth is currently in a North Pole-oriented current sheet. By tomorrow, Earth will be in a South Pole-oriented current sheet. Depicted there in red, this is the sector boundary crossing that we talk about regularly. South solar magnetism is coming. Next, our line of sight field plot, and you'll be able to see the sector boundary crossing here depicted in the solar B field lines, which are the blue lines. Red lines are South Pole potential field surface source lines, and the green lines are North Pole potential field surface source lines. Also, the gong magnetogram is depicted here in grayscale. Lots of magnetism on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk, and if you think that's a grand solar minimum, you belong to a cult. I'm fairly certain of this, although Zarkova does seem like a weird cult leader. Anyway, there's the latest image, and you can see that sector boundary crossing here. Again, that's that blue region. Earth is about to move from a North Pole current sheet to a South Pole current sheet. By the way, we did have stronger geomagnetic storms last time, or actually two times ago. About a month ago, we had a very strong geomagnetic storm associated with a South Pole current sheet. Anyway, here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. We've got some South Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in the east. Those should get a little more well-defined here in the coming days. Let's take a look at coronal holes in 211 angstroms SDO wavelength. This data represents yesterday plus today. And we should start to see coronal holes in this area over here become a little more well-defined. Those will be South Pole-oriented. The ones over here are North Pole-oriented. And it's time to move to sunspots. There is the current sunspot situation. And there may be some activity happening down here. I didn't really see it during show prep. I looked at some high-res imagery. We'll show you some high-res imagery before we switch to our meteorology segment. So that's the current situation. And we're going to show you sunspots in more detail, but first, once again, take a moment to visit our links. If you enjoy the content and prefer to see it continue to exist, remain publicly visible and free for all to view, consider supporting the channel by visiting our affiliate links. One of them, if you're seeing a paid promotion link, would be for the Hemp Lucid shop. So, full disclosure, we are paid to endorse these things. We don't endorse things that we aren't paid for. More of those coming later in the video, but there are all kinds of products here which you may find useful to aid in sleep or stress or focus or perhaps skin condition. So check out the link to the Hemp Lucid shop below this video. Don't forget to enter the promo code SMASHOMASH to save some money on checkout. Enter the promo code SMASHOMASH to save some dough on checkout. And let's take a look at sunspots. So here we've brought up 1600 angstroms. That is yesterday plus today once again. And allow me to get out of the way. Again, sunspots have been largely stable here. This depicts ionized carbon, by the way. That's the 1600 angstroms wavelength from the SDO. Next, we'll move to energetic particles and solar flares. At the moment, the GOES proton flux, that will be the solar energetic particle events. Those are chilling. They're back to baseline levels for the GOES proton flux following a fairly extended series of pulses. At least 2 or 3 separate pulses happening there, creating some relativistic particles. Again, since then, they have subsided. Solar flaring here. No flares in the M-class range for the past 24 hours here. There was a C9.06 that was a sort of a long-duration flare. No relativistic particles generated from that yet, showing up at the GOES 16 and GOES 18 measurements at least. And let's move to our flare wavelengths. Here is the GOES R 131 plus 94 angstroms. And as forecast yesterday, the most active region was indeed this northwestern limb. No surprises there to our regular viewers. We've still got another 12 to 24 hours before that becomes less likely to produce major flares. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. And when I say eye on, well, pardon the pun. How about a close-up? There is your full disk, nearly full disk, at least your equatorial zoom in. Which brings us to space. Hey, welcome to space. Here's what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. By the way, if you're in the neighborhood today, join the VeloFest over at the Valley Preferred Cycling Center, otherwise known as thevelodrome.com, as there is a flea market going on today. Perhaps get yourself a new bike for maybe a lower price. I don't know, maybe a higher price, who knows. But there are some deals available at the Preferred Cycling Center today. I think it's $8 for adults and $6 for children to be admitted to the VeloFest, the famous flea market, otherwise known as the Turkey Shoot. So we've got a crescent moon here. It's a crescent waning moon, very close to Saturn in the sky. You may have seen that overnight if you were up. The sun is chasing Mercury and Jupiter. And I would also note that Venus will be, I think Venus is at its highest point in the sky tomorrow. So see our Smash Team site for more information about that. We put up an article on the Smash Team site about that for Gold and Silver Smash Team members. And thanks to our Gold and Silver Smash Team members, here is a solar system forecast for all of you folks viewing this video. And by the way, thanks to each of you viewing this video. Here's where things will be in a week. We'll have a new moon on the 20th of May as Mercury swings around to leave the terrestrial side of the solar system and enter the gas giant side of the solar system. Next, coronagraphs. There was one somewhat stealthy CME yesterday. It was around 1400 Universal Time, and it may have a small Earth-directed component. If that does strike Earth, it will be a minor, maybe a KP5 at the most. Minor geomagnetic storm could be caused by that, but you don't really see a full halo there, so that could be an event that's missing. Again, if that is earthly directed, it will be a minor impact. Those were today's coronagraphs, or yesterday's coronagraphs. These are today's coronagraphs. 39 more frames there. And it looks like that long duration C9 flare did indeed find itself accompanied by a coronal mass ejection. You can see that coming out of the west. That's very unlikely to be earthly directed. Let's take a look at some more imagery here from some more coronagraphs. There's the Lasco C2 and C3. We'll let those play through in their entirety. We'll also show the view from Stereo A. And there's a diagram of where Stereo A and the Parker Solar Probe and the Solar Orbiter and Bepi Colombo and the inner planets are located. Here's Stereo A on the left and the Lasco C3 on the right. We'll also show some 24-hour videos here after these play through. There's a great CME. And again, that appears to be off to the west. That one occurring just earlier this morning. So here is your 24-hour video featuring the GOES R 195 angstroms and the Lasco C2 and C3. Here's a little closer view. All right, let's zoom in a little bit more to see if we can determine if this... So it looks to me like this CME here, the one that's kind of stealthy around 1400, right there, came from this area down here. So again, that could have a minor earthly directed component. It would be a glancing blow if it did strike. I wouldn't expect the KP to get above 5. It would be a mild geomagnetic storm and probably short-lived also, as it was only a minor coronal mass ejection, and more of it would be off to Earth's southwest than likely to even touch Earth's magnetosphere. Anyway, let's talk about filaments next. And by the way, if you want to name filaments after living people, join us over on Twitter. Just follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. You can also find links and other content you won't find anyplace else on Twitter, just like on Instagram. So if you want to see last night's fish tacos, you can find that on Instagram. Links below the video to the Instagram account. You can also find fitness, diet, lifestyle, exercise, and other random stuff over on Instagram. So here's the filamentary environment, and that is a lot of gigantic filaments. These things do have the capability of flying toward Earth. And that one right there is right in the, quote, Earth strike zone. To quote Tamitha Skov, she likes to refer to coronal holes as moving into the Earth strike zone. And that filament is about in the Earth strike zone right now. So that one could use a name. So join us on Twitter for that. Also one down here at the South Polar region, one at the North Polar region. I don't think that one has a name yet. We named some of these up here, and I've lost track. These two over here could use names also. So lots of filaments there. Name them after living people if you like. Follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament and join us on Twitter if you haven't unplugged entirely from social media. And if you have, we don't blame you. It is pathetic. Truly, truly pathetic as we run multiple businesses that rely on social media. And if you think shadow bans have been fixed by Elon Musk, wake up!
You're living in a delusional fantasy.
Now that I've gotten that out of my system, here are the past couple of hours, and we're going to actually switch to the GOES R 171 angstroms wavelength there. There is the GOES R for the past 24 hours. Here's the past couple of hours from the GOES 16 SUVI. Which brings us to our bonus features segment. We'll start out with satellite charging hazards on the satellite's community dashboard. We have some minor surface charging caused by low energy electrons there in the eastern Pacific. Those should be minor charging hazards as they are only of the surface charging variety and they're not major. They're only yellow and not red. Next, the GOES electron flux here, just in a sort of a nominal range. Nothing to write home about there. Here is the forecast model by NOAA. The green boxes are the forecast. The yellow diamonds are the observation. No arguments with me there. And there is the one-year graph from Solon.info to put that electron flux into context. It's the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence from Solon.info. That is measured at the F layer of the ionosphere, so let's look at the ionosphere, one slice of the upper thermosphere. It's at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Feel free to pause the video in this frame if you're not familiar with the data depicted. So here is the raw vibrational frequency of the bridge between Earth and space. And thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name of news, as we bridge the gap for you between Earth and space, bringing you your space weather and Earth weather together. Anyway, that's the raw vibrational frequency. We'll also show the anomalygram, as you may not be familiar with that, and it can be very confusing trying to look at the raw vibrational frequency and understand what's anomalous and what's not. So here is the anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median, and we are seeing quite a bit of low-frequency anomalies here. So perhaps an indication of the ionosphere puffing up, getting bigger, higher density material there, has less of a tendency to vibrate. A little bit of a puff up there of the ionosphere. It's pretty minor. Lots more low-frequency anomalies on that map than high-frequency, which are depicted in blue. Low-frequency would be depicted in red. There's the latest image, 11:30 Universal Time ionogram and 11:30 Universal Time anomalygram. Large anomalies happening here at the moment over the Middle East and Northern Africa, and moving into Western Europe. We'll also show the total electron content. That's the free electrons up to about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you are unfamiliar with the distances to things like the SDO or the Van Allen probes or the Van Allen belts, etc. Here are the total electron content. This is the total electron content from your GPS satellite to your handset level. It'll show you the most likely places to see errors, and we do indeed see some significant GPS errors here happening around the equator at nighttime. Also in the northern hemisphere, some electrons a bit out of place there. Even the southern hemisphere. So that's your total electron content forecast. It'll depict the most likely places to see GPS errors. Turn on your Wi-Fi location accuracy to use IP address known locations to help you navigate if need be. Here's the North American anomaly in the total electron content. That's the anomaly from the 10-day average. High electron counts depicted in red, low electron counts depicted in blue. And we'll close out our space weather section with high-res imagery of El Sol. There you go. Now, first of all, do we have any active region? Oh, see, there is a sunspot down there. So there's at least one new named sunspot group. And besides that, I don't see anything else. And let us know if we've missed anything in the comments. Some high-res imagery of you, of the closest star there. I won't call it your star. That would suggest that you own it. And you certainly do not own it. If anything, it owns you. So there are sunspots. These are all magnetically complex sunspots. They are all at least beta gamma class. These setting groups, most likely beta gamma delta class. Let's take a brief look at the magnetic fields here. So those are beta gamma delta class. I would suspect it's a little hard to see here as they're getting a little bit too much of an acute angle there. Remember, folks, you're more likely to see large solar flares as large sunspots set, especially large magnetically complex sunspots. That one down there is looking like it's alpha class here at the moment. Just taking a brief trip here around the solar disk for you. Here are these groups in the northeast. So this group here is beta gamma delta class. This group up here, beta gamma delta class, and this group here, beta gamma class. Those are all more likely classes to produce large solar flares than alpha class sunspots, which feature only one polarity umbra. It's time to move to meteorology. And we're starting out by looking at the jet streams of the central world. So there are the jets of the central world. That's Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, depicted in the 250 hectopascal wind band. There are the surface winds of the central world there. Cyclone looking like it's making landfall there on the eastern shores of the Bay of Bengal. Here are the surface winds from the eastern world. And yet another reason to sign up for the Smash Team at smashamash.com/Smash Team at the gold or silver level. You'll get disaster reports, including updated information about what's going on with that tropical cyclone. So those are the jet streams of the east. Here are the jet streams of the west. Huge meridional jet stream bends here in the eastern Pacific and western U.S. So warm air hitting Canada, and then cold air being injected all the way down to Baja California and beyond. Doubled up jet stream over the eastern U.S., a convergence and a huge bend in the North Atlantic jet stream as well. Here are the surface winds of this side of the planet, and let's blast through the rest of our weather data. We don't want the video to be too lengthy. So next we'll show clouds and fog here over the western world. That's what's going on as the sun rises over the Americas. Huge cloud cover here over Texas, as Texas has been getting walloped. So you can see flood warnings there, and some severe weather, like those are tornado watches, I think. Flash flood warnings there in portions of Texas. We've scrolled down to show you the key. You got to do the rest. If your location is lit up, click your location on the map at weather.gov, weather.gov, the National Weather Service website, to obtain your weather warnings. And here are some forecasts. Starting out with pressure and precipitation for the next 72 hours based on the GFS model. See a couple more days here of severe weather coming to Southern California. Yowzers. That looks pretty berserk to me. We'll also show precipitation totals. And one small area there still expected to see over a foot of rain. That's your 72-hour total accumulated precipitation forecast in inches. And here is your GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast. Anomalously warm temperatures coming to the Pacific Northwest. There will be epic snow melt happening as a result of that, if it hasn't already melted from the excessive heat up there. That's your 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. And let's move on to close this mother out. Look at the lightning storm over Texas and Oklahoma. Even Alabama and Florida had some extreme lightning, but Texas, dag. And that is pretty berserk lightning. Let's see what's going on now from our real-time lightning map at lightningmaps.org. We've got quite a bit of lightning here once again on this morning's video. Check out the lightning here around Texas. Most of that's on the Mexico side of the border. Corpus Christi, there is thunder rolling in. It's a pretty severe thunderstorm there. So get your weather warnings from weather.gov if your location is lit up. Don't get lit up by unexpected natural phenomena. Quite a bit of lightning here around the Mediterranean and Middle East. Next, you're all invited to join the Smash team. There's a bronze level. You'll get email alerts for things like natural disasters at the bronze level. There's also a silver and a gold level. These videos are brought to you in part by silver and gold level Smash team members. Increase the probability these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view by becoming a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. It's our own subscription services site launched back in October of 2021 to replace Patreon with our own superior website with vastly superior capabilities. Smashomash.com/Smash Team. Also, check the links below the video. Today's featured product is the shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah, the shirt that I'm wearing is the featured product. So here it is. Now, I am a Hawaiian shirt collector, so you can see my latest acquisitions here right there at amazon.com/shop/smashomash. Links below this video and on our homepage at smashomash.com to that as well. By the way, this shirt was picked because this is our cycling team colors. TheVeloShop.net is our UCI trade team. There are some other products there in our Spacewear section. Yes, Spacewear. If you're going to space, make sure you bring a Hawaiian shirt. You can also find links to our coffee selections, bulk spices, and vitamin supplements. Look for a lot more stuff coming to that soon. Links on the homepage at smashomash.com. Welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Once again, congratulations on realizing this channel exists. We're frankly surprised that you are even able to see the videos on YouTube. Press like, subscribe, share, etc. Leave a comment. Tell your friends and foes about us. And thanks again to each of our viewers. Yeah, that means you. So let's animate this map here of this pretty berserk pair of clouds here. Those are some large cumulonimbus clouds indeed, and more forming here around Ciudad Victoria. Great convective streamers there coming off the edge. That's some fantastic imagery. And we'll close out with U.S. Doppler radar, clouds and fog, and, of course, the water vapor map that should clear things up for you. Let me just initialize these segments here. In the meantime, take a moment to go below the video and click our links. And that was less than optimal. Although our links are optimal. All right, just responding here. Just give me a quick moment. This video was streamed live, by the way. Although after that, it promptly became a YouTube exclusive. Yeah, a YouTube exclusive. All right, just a minute. Almost there, folks. All right, here comes a radar map. We'll show the full 50 states of AUSA, the allegedly United States of America, former nation, now banana republic. And by the way, if you're wondering why I say that, the U.S. became a banana republic by 2016 when it was obvious that there is no such thing as a free press. It was to me, it was obvious by about 2015. And, you know, It's only gotten worse, at least, up until 2020, when all the junkware became deathware officially. The press died by the year 2016, which made it even more important for censorship to go away on big tech platforms, which did not occur. So, welcome to the Banana Republic. The Constitution and laws still do apply, technically speaking. No matter how much certain people refuse to enforce the laws, they still exist. In other words, doing things like misleading investors is still a crime, even in a banana republic. Anyway, there's the lower 48 Doppler radar map. Looks like there's some rain coming to Lehigh Valley. Here is the shortwave radiation map depicting clouds and fog. And here is the water vapor map. This should help to clarify things. I mean, you've got this interesting system here. You've got a high pressure here to the east and a high pressure here to the west, which is creating a channel of low pressure. And that's constraining that moisture into that small area, and it's also creating huge pressure gradients on both boundaries. So that's what's going on. Hopefully that clarifies things. The water vapor map should do that if your Doppler is not obvious. We'll close out with this recap, U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog, depicted by 3.9 micrometer infrared radiation. And there is water vapor. That is a totally sweet map, by the way. And thanks for tuning in once again to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We'll see you soon with additional content. In the meantime, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.